Right, but I would like to first have the panelists introduce themselves. Maybe TJ, you can just go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure. So sorry for joining video call. Actually, I was in India until yesterday, and I came back to Japan to attend this one. Actually, the thing is that my goddaughter, she's just 18 months old. She got sick, and my wife is away, so there was no one else than me who look after. So I'm joining online. So sorry about that. So I founded and I'm the CEO of a company called Gojo, which is a holding company of microfinance or financial service providers in Southeast Asia and South Asian countries. It has been 8 years since we started this journey, and now we are working in 5 countries with 9,000 group employees. We have roughly 2 million customers, 2 million households, clients. Asset under management-wise, it is almost $800 million as of now. And this year, so current run rate is like $150 million. So I believe it is one of the fastest growing and the largest financial service providers among startups in FinTech sector in Japan. Yeah, so I stopped here, and I was quite looking forward to talking with you. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, TJ. Next, we have Cyrus Cruz from ABeam.
Thanks, Jonas. Thanks, everyone. Nice to meet you. My name is Cyrus. I'm from ABeam Consulting. ABeam Consulting is a management consulting firm headquartered out of Japan. We have 7,000 employees globally. I am part of the Southeast Asia practice for insurance, based out of Singapore. We specialize in SAP integration, digital transformation, but more so, quite recently, we have a focus on business consulting, helping out corporates with their corporate venture as a service and partnership distribution as a service, expanding across Southeast Asia. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Cyrus. So last but not least, sorry. Oh yeah, we have Matsuzawa-san from InnovationConnect.
Hi. Hello. Hi. My name is Shota, and I'm the CEO and the founder of InnovationConnect. And I previously worked at JFSA, Kinyu-cho, an FinTech and innovation office. And then what I did in the JFSA is we tried to welcome overseas FinTech companies to Japan, because there is one big initiative in Japanese government, like an international financial hub. And one of the scope is a FinTech company. So today's session is how to bring the Japanese startup FinTech to SCEA. But what I did is actually totally opposite side. And so I'm not sure how I can contribute this time, but still I have some the insight how to fill the gap between the countries and the market. So hope I can help some of the work.
Yeah, I'm sure you can contribute a lot. Yeah, so I would like to start actually with the market opportunity. I showed a bit of the opportunities that there are, but I would love to hear from our panelists. Where are you seeing opportunities, and of course, especially opportunities for Japanese fintechs coming into Southeast Asia? Maybe we start with you, Cyrus.
Thanks, Jonas. As mentioned earlier, I focus mainly on the insurance sector for Southeast Asia, but this also translates to other financial services. I think from a Japanese company's perspective, actually prior to joining ABeam, I also worked with Tokio Marine Group. I was looking after the innovation lab across Southeast Asia and India. Primarily, we're going to look at sheer number of size in terms of market. So I'd like to coin the term VIP market, which I think I may have heard from somewhere, but I'm owning it now, which is Vietnam, Indonesia, and Philippines. While of course there's sheer volume in terms of the population in each respective market, we also have to be cognizant in terms of adoption rate. A lot of these conversations you're going to hear about entering Southeast Asia market, or Japan for that matter, you'll hear localization is very nuanced. What does that really mean? In fact, what's happening in Indonesia and a certain part of it in Jakarta could also be a different adoption rate for other markets, other cities neighboring Jakarta. So those are the considerations. In terms of opportunity, to answer your question, Indonesia is very hot right now. I mean, it has always been hot, at least for the past 7 years, due to the opportunity in the population. But again, being able to implement the projects that we need to do as a startup, that's where the deciding factor is. Now I'm going to contradict myself and be able to tell you that Singapore would actually be a conducive market. So the strategy that you would like to do is to be able to run the pilot that you have with an accepting market. 90% of the time that will be Singapore, or if you're lucky enough you find a partner in Vietnam, Philippines, or Indonesia, you can start there and expand. But more often than not, up until now, safe start would always be with Singapore. As Jonas has mentioned earlier, regulatory considerations, market adoption is very high there. And then within those Singapore head office or headquarters, then you'll find the next market, which could either be Vietnam, Indonesia, or Philippines.
Great. Yeah. TJ, you are in Southeast Asia. Tell us about the market and the opportunity.
Yeah, obviously, yeah, as you said, rightly, Singapore and Indonesia are the two biggest market, but at the same time, it's very hot. What that means that, okay, so there are many competitors first, and then if you are to have engineers, they tend to be very expensive. And then on top of that, actually customer acquisition cost is enormously high these days, especially for lending service, for example. Typical customer acquisition cost for Indonesia market is like $50 per person. And it makes extremely difficult for you to make unit economics work. So that is actually the challenge that we are facing in Indonesia and Singapore and the other, the hot places. So yes, if we have a very cheap entry, if we manage to enter at the cheap the price by acquiring a company or getting some government subsidy or whatever, I will not stop you going to Indonesia or Singapore. And yes, we opened the lab in Singapore, by the way. It was backed by the Singaporean government and Qatar government because they gave us big grants for us to do an R&D, and that's why we started. But otherwise, it's very costly, and it might sound weird, but a country like Philippines may be a good place. And also, if you were to do any FinTech service, and if you want to avoid currency exchange risk, Cambodia also is a good place. Because Cambodia's currency is USD, it's a dollarized economy, so you don't need to worry about currency fluctuation, which tends to be a headache, especially these days. So these are my recommendations as of now. And by the way, so now we are seeing a huge disillusion of fintech, I think. The word became a buzzword like several years ago, and now I think, if you look at the valuation, I think they're all seeing the down round these days. And I believe now is the best time for everyone to really focus on making what is valuable to the customers. I think many fintech companies forgot about that, unfortunately, and then they just used VCs or the investors' money as a subsidy to acquire customers, and that's not working. And their share prices are tanking. And I think as Airbnb was born in 2008, soon after the global financial crisis, I think it is a good time for us to really stop and think about what will be the best service that really the customers need. Okay, I stop here. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely agree, TJ. I still would like to ask Shota, we discussed actually earlier quickly, especially the discussion that I had, and a bit of an impression from the last 3 days is obviously Japan has a big market. Startups are busy first in Japan, and maybe some words also on crypto startups too.
Oh, sure. Yep. So I did mention like after JFS's career, like I started my own business, and independently I helped the overseas fintech company to tap into the Japanese market. At the same time, like some of the company who would like to work on, and then the area is a fintech and also the cryptocurrency, and anything with the blockchain related like a project I'm helping. And then recently, probably you saw the news about some of the blockchain, developer and also the businessmen, they moved to the Singapore and the Dubai. because of the heavy tax here and also the unclear regulation, especially for the cryptocurrency. And then if you issue any fungible token, and probably it takes probably you need to wait for a while until the regulation will be eased. So that's why some of the people leave this country. And I think it's fair because if you wait for the regulation change, then probably 2-3 years will simply pass. Then back these in 3 years and what kind of innovation and what kind of progress happened in blockchain field, it's probably you just sit here and wait, and it's totally a waste of time. So I think if you like to capture some opportunity, and you should go to the overseas, and then Singapore and then try those countries are probably the one of the area.
Yeah, great insights, definitely. So, if you are going into Southeast Asia, I think one topic I want to talk about is partnerships and collaborations. Any advice? Maybe we start with TJ this time. Any advice on, how do you find the right partner? How do you assess the right partner to go into Southeast Asia? Are the incumbents the right partners there? Or what were your thoughts when partnering up in Southeast Asia?
Okay, let me share with you the story of failures. So it took several years for me to find out right people, and until when we entered the bar for our hiring, recruiting for the local talent was very good, and we anyhow tried to gradually improve the bar by expanding the network and getting to know more about the market and getting to know more about the people. And then now, we can comfortably say that our bar is high enough, and we are recruiting the best tier, the top tier talent in the market. The reason why we struggled was that everywhere, every country, good people are connected with good people, right? And then they're always a small circle. And the problem is that if you're a foreigner or stranger, it is sometimes very difficult to get into there. And what helped me a lot was my network with the World Economic Forum. I'm the young global leader of the forum, and it's a very big and selected community. And if you reach out to young global leaders in each country, it's very likely that you get to be connected with the right circle and the right network, and that's how I managed to meet with the best people in the country. But before that, it was really a challenge. Now, we are working with two young global leaders. So in our company, so we have 3 young global leaders. One is from France, another is from, she's in London right now. And now, we know who's who in each country, almost. But yeah, it was very difficult. In hindsight, I don't know how I could have done better. It was a struggle.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, I agree. Working with the right people and finding the right people is not easy, and you need to tap into networks that you can trust. I mean, Cyrus in the Philippines, but also in Indonesia, for example, big family conglomerates basically run a large part of the economy. Can you share a bit of your experience and thoughts on partnerships?
Yeah, I'll get to that point, but I'd like to fully agree with TJ. Southeast Asia, as with many other markets, is very much driven in relationships, but more so in the Southeast Asian market. There are 3 ways to tap into that relationship and being part of, as TJ mentioned, the inner circle. First off, if you're a startup in Japan and you have some success or some traction with a large corporate here, chances are they have presence in one of those Southeast Asian markets. Now, I know it sounds obvious, a lot of the things I will be saying are very obvious, but I think we need to emphasize on that. work on that relationship that you have with Japan office and ask them if they can make an introduction for you in the Southeast Asia market, or if it's part of their strategy to expand in those markets. Sometimes they don't realize it, but you have to help them realize that situation as well. So that's number one. Number two, as Jonas has mentioned, a lot of this Southeast Asian markets are largely driven by family conglomerates. And again, in the most traditional sense, I even heard a story, oh, there you go, there's the part of the panel. There was this one gentleman who was sailing in Singapore. Again, sailing is not a poor man's sport, it's an affluent person's sport. And he met this unsuspecting Filipino guy who was there and who just happens to have a beer with him. All of a sudden, 2 weeks later, he's on a meeting with very senior people from that large Philippine conglomerate, and I'm not sure if they did a POC because I'm not sure if the startup was good. That they were able to successfully be able to connect with the people in the market. Probably shout out to my friends at ABeam behind you. They're from Thailand, very local guys. They work with 9 out of the 10 largest insurance companies in Thailand, which is a testament in terms of like building that relationship and very locally, culturally nuanced. So if any of you guys are interested in Thailand, talk to them after. The third one, which is what we were talking about earlier in Singapore, a lot of these organic networking events or sometimes pseudo-organic networking events like what we're doing here right now. Jonas with Tenity has been doing an excellent job. And of course, Tokyo FinTech meetup, from what I understand, isn't really a regular thing in Japan. But in Singapore, there are a lot of this inner circle communities. There's people who would go up into conferences with 500,000 people. I could talk to you about what we do in Web 3.0 and AI, but you've heard that too many times. But you go out to these organic networking sessions, you hear the real problems, you actually know who the real decision makers are in the companies and what strategies companies are looking at. So it's important to actually immerse yourself and get to know the people around the circle.
Yeah.
There you go.
Sure, I have a question to you guys. Because as you said, there's a lot of conferences, right? In Southeast Asia. And I have no idea which one is good to which one to choose. And then the Singapore FinTech Festival is definitely a big one. But is there anything else we should look?
Are we being recorded?
I don't think. I don't know.
No, I mean, in terms of fintech, I would definitely say in Southeast Asia, Singapore FinTech Festival is the largest by far, and it's really it's happening every year. So I would say if you want to go to the largest, you want to go there. There's the Hong Kong FinTech Festival, focused on Hong Kong. There's Token 2049 for all the crypto startups. I think that's a very big one also in Singapore. And then all the countries, they have some of their own.
Okay.
So.
Okay. I'm not going to give you a direct answer. It actually depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for more eyeballs for people to know you, that's also a valid concern. Oh, that's a valid need. Then of course the usual guys, which is Singapore FinTech Festival, will be a good one to get exposure to the market. Top of mind. But then again, if marketing dollars are a consideration and you may not want to spend $50,000, $100,000 on an event and not knowing, but again, don't get me wrong, these are very effective events as well. You get a lot of leads. You can go through that organic route as well on immersing yourself within the ecosystem and getting to know people like Jonas, for example, or a Tokyo FinTech meetup, and be able to get connected with relevant people. So as it is today, like right now we're sitting here I've met 19 new people and new friends that I could easily bother next time and do an ABeam consulting pitch to you guys. But effectively, it's the same thing in Singapore. To answer your question, optics-wise, you can look at the brand names like Singapore FinTech Festival, InnovationConnect. If it's visibility, then yes. But in terms of looking at what's really happening on the ground and having deeper relationships, if that's the term I'm looking for, then you can also go away from that. So it depends on which stage your company is in and if you have marketing dollars. So very good.
But you ask TJ as well.
Yeah, I think one thing I definitely want to mention, not just because we are an accelerator and incubator, but they can be very useful. And there are various, so there's Plug and Play in Southeast Asia, there's 500 Startup, there are various other local ones, so don't be shy. They all have a network, they all have mentors, so I really see a lot of value that these networks can bring. It can be an entry point.
And they need you too.
And they need you too. All right. DJ, anything you want to add on?
No, I also say Singapore FinTech Festival is the largest, and our members all join that every year. And, no, if you go there, you can meet everyone. Regardless of the genre of FinTech, Web3 guys are there, and the payment, everyone is there. So that's the most efficient place. But it is too big to get connected with everyone. That's an issue that we are facing. But anyway, if you have a very specific category that you're interested, I think that's the go-to place in Asia.
Great. All right, we move on. Cultural and regional differences. I'll just start quickly. I mean, don't think about Southeast Asia as a homogeneous market. It is not a homogeneous market. So a lot of different countries with different regulations and of course also different languages. So really, you do need to think hard about which markets do make sense for you. And I would also not advise you to go into several markets at the same time. I think you want to pick your battles and then go in and validate first. Cyrus, what would you say? Challenges? Cultural differences?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack with that one. So one is, of course, considerations of your business model. So even like last Monday in Indonesia, we were talking about potential partners for insurance companies in terms of distribution. Coming from like a Philippine setting, the popular FinTech platform right now is an e-wallet, which again, very obvious. But in Indonesia, from a finance perspective, while they do have e-wallets, that's not the brand name or the household facility that they're thinking at right now. They're looking at lending. So again, as Jonas has mentioned, while we look at FinTech in general, there's e-wallet, there's lending. You also have to understand locally what's the word of mouth for people. What do they keep talking about? Again, it's very much optics driven. But one important thing, and I couldn't harp on this much, working styles. I think that's a very important thing that you have to consider, especially coming from Japan. And I think I could say it. I worked with a Japanese company for about 5 years. We're very thorough, particular. We're always on time, always prepared. And I say this with love. Don't expect the same type of precision or articulation with other Southeast Asian markets. My Korean friend here is laughing, I don't know why. But again, just managing of expectations. Another thing is certain markets are too polite not to say no. So don't get overly enthusiastic when they say, oh yeah, that's great. We'd like to talk to you again. Especially when they see you coming, oh, we flew down from Switzerland or we flew down from Singapore, especially from Tokyo, suit wearing guy. They'd like to see you guys. They feel important. And they don't want to disappoint you and say no. They'd say, yes, we're interested. But in reality, you have to ask, like, what are really the next steps? So, yeah, sorry, I did too much information, but I guess that's helpful.
From my side, I can comment on the regulation part, like the difference. So, I think there's several difference between the regulation in the different countries. But like a basic rule is the same business, same rule. And then the financial authorities in each country, if at least once a year, we have the communication. So I think 3-4 hours long, like a meeting, and we talk about what kind of new regulation we initiated, and then what they other side, so the counterpart is doing it, and we catching up. So I think that basically the rules is catching up. So if some country is behind, and you can do whatever you want, but still it will come up and then catching up. So regulation part is if there is any hole and you find it, but still it will probably fill the hole later. And then but tax is different. Tax is I think it depends on the country size and also the earnings of the country. That's why like tax is not easily catching up. So like Singapore is I think like easy to live, and due to the like tax has a low tax compared to other countries, especially compared to Japan. And those like tax differences, probably it's hard to fill the gap for a while. So that's what I can comment.
Yeah, great insights. TJ, how are you seeing the differences?
Yeah, I totally agree with what Cyrus was saying. There was an interesting anecdote. Okay, let's say there's a German boss and say Indonesian staff. And then let's say German boss says, okay, we have to work during this weekend because we have to achieve that. And the Indonesian staff say to him that, okay, yes, we should. By the way, we have I have the family wedding, which is a very important thing. And the German boss say, okay, oh, that's congratulations. And then the Indonesian staff say, oh, thank you for your understanding. Okay, would this Indonesian staff come to the office during the weekend or not? People from Asia definitely will say that, okay, this stuff will never come. But sometimes what I found interesting is that some of my European colleagues felt that, okay, oh, he said we should, so he will come. So that's I think the communication breakdown sometimes we face when we do business in Southeast Asia. People really make subtle decision making, and the people really love harmony. If you look at how ASEAN works, how ASEAN country is deal with Myanmar after this coup d'etat, some people are still maintaining the ties with this the country. So that's I think the big thing that we really have to understand. And sometimes when we sometimes send European colleagues to the Southeast Asian countries, and I hate stereotype, but some people find it very difficult to manage. Some adjust, but some takes time to adjust to it. That's number one. Number two, which I found, I think after working in Southeast Asia several years, which is people are smiley and people seem very obedient, but they are very proud of their way of doing things, actually. And after getting very close to my colleagues, they started to talk to me that, oh, this person doesn't respect our way of doing things, and that's why we don't want to work with him. And their sabotage, again, is very subtle. They don't have a revolution like fighting against their boss. They very silently sabotage things. So, and that is their way of having a resistance. I know this kind of culture, the discussion sometimes is very difficult because, I don't want to promote stereotype, and every country, the people are different. But I wanted to share with you things that I often encounter, although there are many exceptions. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, DJ, for sharing. And I think it's really something that's a bit difficult to explain, right? You really have to experience these subtle differences. I mean, we could go on and on with a lot of questions. But I think there might be questions from the audience that we could answer. Has anyone a question for us?
There we go.
Thank you, all the panelists. I have a question for a startup who wants to enter Japan. What's the good way to understand regulatory landscape of Japan? Is it?
So how do you know about the regulations in Japan?
Correct.
Okay, I think you can directly ask the JFSA about the financial regulations, because of course there's lawyers who can help to understand the regulation. But I think the lawyer is that they need to earn like a profit, right? So sometimes they make it like complicated and then try to earn the more like hourly wages, like hourly fee. So that's why like if you have any question, you can directly talk to the financial authority. And I think like it's same to the other country too. Like usually like a financial like authorities, also the regulator has the like innovation office or something, and then they have the free address and also the phone number, and you can just simply like call them and then they can try to answer to you. But JFSA is that in general like we try to respond to you 5 days average. So it's still like you cannot get the immediate answer, but still like in 5 days, like probably you get some answer.
Thank you.
I was going to say, always plant questions in Japan.
So go ahead, give us a hard, a difficult one.
I don't have a question prepped, I was just giving the mic back, but in general, you always want to plant questions here. It's a really good point about, like, with the FSA and generally with those sorts of organisations in Japan, government agencies in Japan, they're much more helpful than people might from the outside might realise. They will generally try to be really, really helpful. I think law firms have a place as well. I've been in firms where we've used law firms to get specific legal opinions around specific business that we wanted to do, but it tended to be something that was really specific and not necessarily prescribed. So I think that I've seen both scenarios work in practice.
Any other questions?
I wanted to follow up about the culture aspect, especially if you're looking at startups, which then are looking at working in other regions. So what do you see happening in this space? Because if you're looking from a, say, employer perspective, there's a lot of DEI, or like, just say diversity and inclusion, and there's that kind of thing. So when it comes to mindset and going into a new culture area, it's not possible to expect that they are going to adjust to the culture that's coming in. But at the same time, with, say, continued globalization or continued global presence, do you foresee that there will be a change? That there will be a middle way, so to say?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. By the way, TJ, thanks for supporting my comment earlier with a specific example. I don't look so bad anymore. No, but this has been the case in business process outsourcing, particularly in markets like India and the Philippines. So it's like Philippines is a very good example. If you look at two big companies, right, large local company versus a multinational company in the Philippines, the culture of the employees is vastly different. So how that would shift in terms of fintechs or startups getting into the Philippine market or India or any other market for that matter is like there's still a pocket of these employees, and there's a lot of them who have been exposed into a Western way of doing things or a Japanese way of doing things, and that could be a factor in your hiring, which will be more conducive for them in terms of being able to work with your organization. Another to note is, of course, I think there's Gen Z right now, wherein they're more worldly or stuff. I cannot say I look like one, but unfortunately not. But how they would react to this is still a question mark for me. We have yet to see, but I think it has been done before, and there's hope. I mean, it's there. It's just finding the right type of profile. But again, that sounds like a very nice answer. You also have to understand and anticipate someone having a wedding on a Saturday and telling you, is it okay if my brother's going to have a wedding, effectively not going to work tomorrow? Those are just like, as with everything else and everywhere else. It could be Philippines, Indonesia, India, Japan, United States, UK. We always have our, unfortunately, stereotypes, if you may say, but those are realities that we have to play with. And I think, yeah, I mean, we got to bring that out in the open, and we have to manage expectations. So yeah, I hope that is quite helpful and clear. DJ, anything to add?
Yeah, for us at the top management level, say 40% are women, But there was some very embarrassing thing, which was, so we had a group offsite where all the group company CEOs gathered in one place, and we found that everyone was male. So, actually, so in terms of gender parity, Japan unfortunately is the much worse place than many other countries in Southeast Asia. And there are many, the women bosses, and some countries are quite tolerant to LGBTQs also. But when it comes to the top management scale, I fear it's male-dominant society, and I'm personally very embarrassed with that, and we really want to change it. I think when we are planning this. So whenever we, have the change management, when we replace the CEOs of our group workforce in each country, we always we have at least for final candidates we have man and woman. That's these days mandatory.
I had another answer, but here I can do it. Another in terms of like looking for talent who will be able to adapt culturally from a foreign startup. There are also local people from respective markets who have worked overseas or studied overseas who would like to go back. As TJ has mentioned earlier, another misconception is like salaries are relatively lower in these markets, which is no longer the case. Especially if you're building up a very relevant fintech organization. They're going to come close to like Singapore market rate. So there are also upsides for them going back home, taking care of their parents, or maybe being back with their family, or maybe just missing home for that matter, especially for relatively senior hires, that's also a consideration.
Yeah, I think I just want to mention what you said. I think there's a huge difference between the local and international organizations, and but I see more and more initiatives. I see in the venture space there are really now VCs that focus on female founders. So I think there are a lot of initiatives, but it's of course not there where it should be. We have space for one more question, and then we'll wrap up and we can all mingle and network. I think everyone wants to network. That's great. So thank you so much, audience, for being here today. Thank you so much to the panelists.
Thank you so much
for coming.
Thank you.
And thank you to Norbert for hosting us and organizing this.